All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is a Monday. Happy Monday to everyone out there. We got November 25th and a 9-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to jump into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player prop spots that we like within the game as well. But make sure to keep an eye on the final plays. Where can you find the final plays? Over on the Guy Boston Sports site. You can find more about that in the pinned comment, absolutely free. Go ahead and check out the pinned comment. In terms of how we did yesterday, now, it visually looks good, right? 3-2, clap it up, yay. Unfortunately, yeah, the plays were good, but the unit management was not. We had one unit on that same game parlay, Kuz and Poole, 15 plus points. Poole doesn't even play, so that leg gets voided, and then Kuzma doesn't even get to 15. So that was a one-unit loser. Our only other loss was the Mavs money line, which honestly was kind of a decent look, I guess. They took it to overtime as underdogs there. But the problem being is that our Clippers, Mavs team total over, and then Cavs minus 2.5 first quarter, all were not full unit plays. So we do lose like that much yesterday, even though it looks like a 3-2 positive night. It actually was slightly in the green. The plays were in the green, but the unit management wasn't necessarily there. But on the good side of things, I know we're coming off of a nice streak from Jacob. Again, a shout out to Jacob for the ride of the day, but we are now back on the win train here. Let's clap it up, pumping some crowd noise for Iggy 2K. Had Kyrie Irving under 7.5 assists. Kyrie finished with, what was it? I believe 6 assists yesterday. Let me fact check that. Yeah, Kyrie Irving finished with 6 assists against the Heat in an overtime game yesterday in 35 minutes of play. So we shall take the ride of the day win. If you guys don't know what the ride of the day is, it's simple. Just use that hashtag ride of the day or ROTD in the comments. Give me your favorite play, and then I pick one in the comments. Jump on board with it, and you get a shout out in the next video, win or loss. So looking forward to seeing what Iggy rolls with today, because if you win, we continue to roll with your play until you lose, so you get multiple shout outs. But if you lose, we do still talk about it. You get the shout out. You got to face the womp womp though. So go ahead and get those hashtag ride of the days there. If you want to find the ride of the day to ride with it, I tweeted out. That Twitter handle will be popping up, or X handle will be popping up right here throughout the show, and it's over on GuyBostonSports.com on the final plays post page, kind of halfway down the page. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Let's go ahead and jump into this slate. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, you guys. Let's go ahead and rock. We got Charlotte taking on Orlando here. Charlotte getting 5 points. I've seen 5.5 on some books as well. They're coming off of a cover against Milwaukee, but they did lose by 6. They're 8-point dogs. Orlando beating Detroit a couple days ago by 11. I'll say this about this Charlotte team. LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller are clearly clicking, right? Like, they are absolutely going off. LaMelo went for 50 against Milwaukee. I think Brandon Miller had 30 plus of his own. They did that a couple nights ago as well. I think they broke their own record. No duo had ever gone for 35 plus on each side, and then all of a sudden the combined score the next night was pretty crazy. So yeah, they're cruising, but this is a very good Orlando defense. Around the perimeter, maybe not so much, which is where Charlotte's going to shoot from. But if this was any more than 5 points, I think I would consider Charlotte here. But the way Orlando's been playing, the way they've been resilient in the face of adversity, I know that's like a cliche thing to say, but losing Paolo Banchero when they were kind of riding a high early on in the year, I would have thought that would make their season crumble. No, they've still won 8 of their last 10 games. They're 10-8 against the spread here. My one concern for this spot, and I guess I will say, I lean Orlando just because that 5 doesn't seem like a big enough number, right? My one concern here is that Orlando is undefeated at home. They're just 3-7 on the road here in this spot. So yeah, not all that impressive of a road record, but 2 of their last 3 road games were against the Lakers and the Suns, and they won those outright, and they were dogs against the Lakers. So maybe they're getting a little bit better on the road there. Give me Orlando. In terms of the total here, I will slightly lean towards the over. Last 3 games or so for Orlando, we've started to see that defense not look, terrible, but definitely penetrable. Like you would think that they have this lockdown defense before, and they did. They were barely letting teams sniff 100 points. Now the last few games, it's been a little bit worse than that, right? In terms of last 3 of opponent points per game, they're still looking good, but just not where they were on the entire season. So I'm thinking Charlotte riding a high now in the last 3. They're a top 10 scoring team over their last 3 games. No kidding, their guys are going off, right? Maybe they can at least contribute and put up some numbers. So I'll lean slightly towards the over here. And then from a player prop perspective, I don't think that there's anything really to look at on the Charlotte side of things, just because those two guys would be the guys that I look at, and their lines are absolutely inflated. And then on the Orlando side of things, I feel like it could be a similar story. Like Franz Wagner might be a decent look here, but Franz Wagner's been going off and his lines are inflated. So yeah, unfortunately, there are spots that I like for guys, and the superstars in this game, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and Franz. But I think that all of their lines are a little inflated. So probably sticking away from player props in this game, sadly. But as always, keep an eye on the final plays. If we add anything there that we don't talk about in the video, I'll give a little sub bullet and a blurb as to why I like it, so you at least have my reasoning and rationale. All right, moving on, we have Detroit taking on Toronto. Big injury news. We talked about it last time they played, which Detroit coming off of a loss against Orlando. We kind of just talked about with that Orlando. But no Cade Cunningham in this spot as he hurt his hip. Actually, he's listed as doubtful, but he left that game on Friday, didn't play last game. I have a hard time believing he's going to play here today. So he's listed as doubtful. I'm assuming no Cade Cunningham. Let me put it like that. If he plays, it would switch things up. But I do think that as Toronto gets healthier, right? They get Scotty Barnes back. RJ Barrett still in the starting lineup. Jakob Poeltl's down there. Like, this team starts to get a little bit better. Now, I don't think that this Toronto team is going to be world beating or anything like that, but I don't necessarily look at Detroit and say, well, without their best player by far and away, they should be 5-point favorites in this spot. Now, maybe it's due to the fact that Toronto's on a back-to-back. That could totally be. Their guys played a decent amount of minutes too, like Scotty Barnes just coming back from injury played 34. RJ Barrett played 33, so I totally understand that. But I think I'm going to look at the underdog here in this spot and in Toronto. Now, why do we like that? Well, a couple different reasons here. Toronto, if there's one thing that they struggle with so far this year, it's hitting threes. In terms of attempting them, they barely shoot them from above the break, dead last over the last 10 games. On the season, 30th in points per game from three, but they're going up against a Detroit defense that is very weak from three in terms of guarding the perimeter and whatnot. So if Toronto can do what they normally do and like to shoot inside and potentially score inside, Detroit's just kind of like a middle-of-the-pack team inside. If they can score inside, but then also put in some threes, with anybody, if Grady Dick, I think he's listed as probable or questionable, that'd be nice if he plays because he's a nice shooter, but any of these guys, if they can make more threes than normal, I think you have a Toronto team that should have some success down low, right? And then also have a little bit more, I guess, of an easy spot than they have so far this year. Shooting the three. Now, last time they played, Toronto did cover this line. They lost by 4 points. They ended up shooting like 25% from three. So all of a sudden, it's like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I don't think that they're that bad from three. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they shoot 25% again. So they only lost by 4, shooting 25% from three. And I know they're a bad shooting team, but they're going against a bad defensive team from the perimeter. So I think they shoot a little bit better today. Give me Toronto plus the 5 points. That total is at 223. I've seen some 225s out there as well. This is most likely a low-scoring game just based on these two teams' paces. Toronto 23rd in terms of pace in the last 10. Detroit 20th. And like I said, even though I'm kind of liking Toronto because of the potentiality of the three ball, potentiality, vocab word, yeah, I'm a scholar. I don't think they're going to try and shoot threes as much. I'm more so saying when they do take the threes, they have a better chance of making them. They're still going to try and get to the hoop. In the last 10 games, second most attempts from the restricted area. So if you're counting by twos, yeah, getting to 224 is going to be a little bit difficult. And it's not like this Detroit team is all that tremendous from three either, right? They're kind of middle of the pack in terms of attempts. So I like this to be a slow-paced game, kind of a grinded-out game, which is why I like those 5 points in my back pocket. I don't mind Jaden Ivey either. I know I'm liking Toronto in this spot, but no Cade Cunningham. He should be able to shoot a lot, and I think we're getting a decent number on him here now that 20 and a half. You can also get 19 and a half. That's probably what I would look at, but he had 19 against Orlando last time out. The guy should shoot 40-something% from the field, overall, right? He shot 30, I think it was like 36% from the field against Orlando. Orlando's way better defensively than Toronto, so if he got 19 against Orlando in Cade Cunningham's absence, I see him being able to go out there and hopefully put up a decent number. For what it's worth, Orlando also this season Detroit allowing the third most points to the shooting guard position. So yeah, could be a good spot for Jaden Ivey. Kind of buying low after that one game without Cunningham, and people are like, oh, maybe he's not going to step up. I think today could be the day that he does. All right, next we have Indiana taking on the Pelicans. I'll just say this. I still really have no intention of investing in the Pelicans whatsoever until either they get fully healthy or they kind of get back on track. This one you have Missy and CJ McCollum game time decision. Brandon Ingram is playing, so that's good for them, but obviously still that injury report is crazy long. McCollum, Missy, DeJounte Murray listed as a game time decision, but also I've seen him as doubtful on other sites, so maybe he's coming back soon. I don't know about today, right? That would change things entirely. Like I said, I'd start looking at them once they get healthy, but I don't think he's going to play. And then in terms of out, Herb Jones, Alvarado, and Zion Williamson. So it's just still not much of an interest of me to kind of focus on Indiana and whatnot, on the Pelicans. So I'm going to look at Indiana here. They are coming off of a win yesterday against the Washington Wizards. So if you want to say, well, they're on a back-to-back and whatnot, sure, but this is a Pelicans team that is yet to cover in a game in which they had a rest advantage over the opposing team. They're just in disarray, even if they win today. Like, I'm not saying I'm so confident in Indiana, it's crazy, right? Even if they win today, it's like, okay, now you're starting to show me something, but I don't want to be early to the party of thinking the Pelicans are going to be good, because that's going to result in a couple L's. So give me Indiana in this spot. The total is sitting at 227. Based on how the Pelicans have been playing defense, I don't necessarily mind the idea of an over in this spot. Now, is Indiana going to be tired, with their legs and whatnot? Sure, but in terms of back-to-back so far this season, they've hit the over every time, and yeah, I don't think that they're the best defense to begin with, never mind on a back-to-back with some tired legs. So I guess I'll look at the over, maybe a team total over for Indiana. That way I don't have to worry about the Pelicans and whatnot. But yeah, overall that might be the look that I guess I take a peek at here. In terms of a player prop, I feel like I've said this for a couple of, or at least for the Orlando and Charlotte. I don't really have anything. Like, injuries are obviously impacting this. I don't have many player props in this one, so I'm not going to force it. We got a big slate. No need to try and dig 7 feet down, and you've already done 6 feet down on the game. All right, Atlanta taking on Dallas. Yes, Dallas is on the back-to-back, and yes, they did go to overtime with Miami yesterday, honestly almost winning that game as an underdog, and it's a similar spot here. They're on the road again, 3-point dogs. Atlanta coming off of 3 of their last 4 games being losses, and, not exactly the hardest of schedules. I mean, not terrible, but Portland, Sacramento, Golden State, and Chicago. I think this is a Dallas spot even with the back-to-back. Now, my one concern is the injury report right now has nothing but Luka out, and we know he's out for at least a little bit longer, right? But this is a back-to-back. Could we see Klay Thompson be ruled out late? Could we see Kyrie Irving be ruled out? Could we see Daniel Gafford, who was a game-time decision yesterday? Like, maybe. It is the freaking NBA, you know what I mean? So that worries me a little bit. But if those guys are playing, and I'll try and wait out as long as I can, I really do like Dallas in this spot. They're the by far and away better offensive and defensive team. Now, if you look at it from a points per game perspective, you're going to be like, well, they're pretty similar. Atlanta this season, 10th most points per game, Dallas 9th. But from an offensive perspective in terms of efficiency, well, yeah, first off, you have Atlanta being the number 1 pace team over the last 10 games and Dallas being the 13th. So there you go. More possessions for Atlanta, right? That's why they can score more points. Offensive efficiency, Dallas is 6th. Atlanta 21st. So it's like there is a discrepancy there. I truly believe that. And then even from a perspective of how they might score, Dallas shoots in the paint 3rd most in the last 10 games in terms of frequency. Well, Atlanta isn't all that bad in the paint, but from deep, they're dead last on the season in terms of points allowed. So much like when we talked about Toronto, Dallas is going to look to score in the paint, but they definitely have the ability and shooters to be able to score from 3. So even if it's not working, plan B should be good enough and soft enough spot for, Atlanta, for Dallas to be able to go out there and put up some points. Does that make sense? So give me Dallas in this spot. I'm going to trust their defense here as well, so I'm going to look at the under 238. And then a player prop that I'm liking is going to be Klay Thompson over 14.5 points. He's been super, super spotty. I get it. I mean, he had 0 points against Denver a couple nights ago. But again, I mentioned this is an Atlanta team that is just allowing a bunch of threes. 2 small forwards specifically, they're allowing the 7th most over the last 7 games, and on the season, the 30th, so the most. So yeah, I think Klay Thompson could have a bounce back spot here. We did see him in that game without Luka last time out, and he had 15 points. He covered this. It went to overtime, so maybe, yeah, that's a little worrisome, but I still think that he's going to have some volume and have some open looks from 3. So Klay Thompson's going to be a player prop spot I'm looking at here. Again, that's going to be over 14.5 points. All right, next up, Boston taking on the Clippers. We do have both teams here on a back-to-back. Boston, close game against Minnesota. Jaylen Brown went absolutely nuclear. They win that one 107-105. And then the Clippers beat the Sixers. We were on the right side of that one. They blew them out 125-99. A lot of their guys didn't play many minutes either. Like, no one on the team played 30 minutes, so that's obviously something worth noting. This is a Celtics team that is, no one's hiding that, at least from this camp, right, that they're the best team in the NBA. This Clippers team, though, I do think is getting overlooked in some regards as to where they've been good and how they've been able to control games. That being said, is it smart to look and bet against the Celtics as of right now? Probably not. So I think the Celtics win this game, but that is a big number, 9.5. So I can admit that. Like, I don't think that I'm fully on board with, riding with that, but at the same time, like, they do have that pull away ability, and the Clippers are truly on a back-to-back. So far this year, they've only covered in 25% of their back-to-back games, so maybe it is a spot in which, the Celtics can make things happen, but to me, I'm probably staying away from it. It's almost like one of those spots where I think the Clippers can hang in this game, but I don't feel strongly enough about that to roll with it, and then they're going up against a team that totally can demolish anybody at any time. Makes it a little bit tough. So yeah, it might be kind of an on the fence spot, but I'll lean Celtics without really thinking that I'm going to get there entirely. Now, the total is there at 218.5, right? I do think that this is going to be a defensive game. I mean, that's one thing that I feel like is being overlooked on the Clipper side of things. This Clippers team is the 7th most efficient defense in the league so far this season. The Celtics sitting at 5th. And where do these two teams like to score from? Okay, well, Celtics love to shoot the three. We know that. Clippers, top 6 team, so they're 6th in terms of points allowed from three. The one thing I'll say is that the Celtics don't cover the paint all that well. So far this season, allowing the 4th most points in the paint, not at the restricted area, but in the paint. And that is where the Clippers take a decent amount of shots from. So if you like the Clippers, that's probably a little piece of a nugget there. But overall, if the Celtics do stop that and do kind of cloud and clog the paint, then I don't see any way that this Clippers team scores easily. So I like the under 218.5, probably more than I do either side in this one. And from a player prop perspective, it kind of tails right off of what I just said. I like a guy that's going to be scoring in the paint here. I'm going to be looking at the Ivica Zubac. I think I said his name correctly that time. Him over 14.5 points. He leads the team over the last 10 games in terms of restricted area as well as in the paint buckets. Norm Powell is right behind him, so if you want to look at that too, I don't mind it. We don't have lines out. Or actually, he's out, isn't he? So yeah, why would we look at that? He's been out for a little while. So there you go. Just in terms of ranking, though, that's how I would look at it. Celtics struggle at points in the paint. You go to any site that you want to find where the shooting zones are. Points in the paint. Look good to go down the list. Zubac is on at first, and then obviously Norm Powell, but he is out. Derek Jones Jr. is playing, but I don't know if I really want to bet on him. He's definitely not going to be getting the amount of looks and whatnot that you like. But his line is down there all the way at 9.5. He's hit it in 2 straight games, 17 and 18, and it's plus money. So maybe that's something to consider. Maybe we don't mind him. I just don't think he's going to have the field goal attempts or like the true minutes that we want to see. He's been playing like 24 minutes. He had one game of 30 recently, but yeah, we'll see about that. Now the more I talk about it, the more I could see it happening. But I think Zubac is going to be the player prop look in this one mainly. Memphis taking on Portland here. A lot of injuries. Ja Morant listed as a game-time decision, so this team is getting healthier. Ja Morant obviously been out for a while. I think it's like the last 8 or 9 games he's been out. So obviously if he comes back, that literally changes this Memphis team's dynamic immediately. On the other side for Portland, we do have DeAndre Ayton listed as a game-time decision, but doubtful. Klingon is listed as out. Henderson, Grant, and Murray all listed as questionable as well. So keep an eye on the injuries. This is definitely a huge number to be laying as Memphis here. Like, I don't think Memphis right now, especially without Ja Morant, should necessarily be, I would say, 10-point favorites over anyone. Do I think they win this game? Probably, right? They just beat Chicago by 11. They're 4-point favorites. As I say, they shouldn't be 10-point favorites over anyone. They just won that. They beat Philly. They lost to Denver. Okay, right? They beat Denver the night before. Both those without Jokic. Keep it close against Golden State. Like, they're playing good basketball. Portland coming off of a win as 11.5-point dogs against Houston. Let's not forget the night before they got absolutely stomped by them. But it's just too many points for me. I am going to lean Portland, even though it's, We'll sound the cycle alert alarm. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to lean Portland, but both these teams should want to be shooting in the paint. And, not oddly enough, it's just been kind of the way the season has gone. Portland's been the better in the paint defense, so Memphis scores a lot in the paint. Portland should be able to hold their own. The one thing I already mentioned, though, a lot of bigs are injured here for Portland, so that's pretty massive to note, you know what I mean? But still, 10 points seems like it's a little bit too much. Do I have the cojones to roll with Portland myself? We shall see. In terms of the total, it's at 230 here in this one. I see both teams being able, neither one of these teams is all that great defensively. They're good defensively, but they play at a fast pace, and they love to get easy looks, meaning there's not a lot of empty possessions, right? Like, they like to score at the rim or in the paint, so I'm going to lean towards the over. If this is a lower number, I might try and line read and be like, the fact that you have that line all the way down there tells me that there might be some missed shots and whatnot, but I think this could be an up-tempo game with a lot of layups, and usually, if you watch every day, I'm like, well, layups equal, it's hard to hit an over when you're counting by 2, but I do think both these two teams can kind of efficiently score today against one another, so yeah, it's kind of flipping on my normal thought process here. The last time they played, Memphis put up 130, and that was only, a couple weeks ago, so if Portland even comes to play with some buckets here, then I think that we're looking at an over 230. And with all the injuries and whatnot, I'm not focused on player props on this one. I didn't even really do much digging for it, so if you have something and you like it, it doesn't mean that I saw it and didn't like it, so do not let that change your mind. Denver taking on the Knicks here. Denver 4-point favorites, total all the way up there at 232.5. This should be a good game. Now, we do have a little bit of an injury watch to look at here. Nothing major on the Denver side of things. Peyton Watson, he's listed as a probable player. But New York, Karl-Anthony Towns listed as questionable. They're already going to be without pressure, like they have been, right? Without Precious Achiuwa, Mitch Robinson, Hardenstein's not there anymore. So, yeah, this is an interesting one, because if Karl-Anthony Towns isn't there, then Jokic should absolutely eat, and I think this is a Denver spot. So, we'll keep an eye on that injury. I think I like Denver anyways, even if Towns does play. They started to put things together, and then Jokic was out for personal reasons and whatnot, so then they cooled off. But obviously, it's because Jokic was out. If he's back, they're just a really good team. They put up 127. They won 127-102 against the Lakers. So, I think this is a good spot for them. They're not on a back-to-back or anything, and Lakers coming off a tough loss in Utah when they were 9-point favorites. If Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't play, this seems like it's a really good spot to get Denver, especially at home, right? They're 5-3 so far this year at home, whereas the Knicks are just 4-5. We'll keep an eye on that Towns news, because I do think the New York Knicks can keep this one somewhat close with Towns playing. But I guess even still, I probably would lean Denver with him playing. So yeah, I guess that's going to be the lean. It's just a matter of the confidence level when we see that injury report kind of get, more and more updated. Now, from a total perspective, it's at 232, and you look at this and you have to think, well, Denver plays slow. That's wrong. They literally have been playing fast this season. You know what I mean? It's like you think of these numbers and you're like, oh, Denver in a 232 game at home, you got to lean under. The Knicks, they play slow too. It's like both these teams are either middle of back like the Knicks or higher end pace like the Nuggets. So it's tough to lean towards an over in this spot, but I feel like I'm gonna do it, and I have to do it. I think that Denver should be able to put up a good number here, even if Karl-Anthony Towns does play. I think that there could be some success. Now, from a player prop perspective, Denver doesn't shut down the mid-range all that much, and Jalen Brunson's going to shoot from mid-range, but his number's all the way up at 26.5. I might take a peek at Mikal Bridges. Now, do I like the idea that his number is 17.5, and he's only hit that in 3 of his last 10 games, and on the season only in 5 of 16? I guess I don't, but you can get it at 16.5 if you want to buy it down a little bit. That's kind of as far as you can go with legitimate odds, right? So I'd look at him. I am a little concerned with the fact that he has just not been consistent. He will shoot 50% one night and then 20% the next, like he did in his last 2 games. So yeah, I'll think long and hard about that one. I think the favorite spot here is probably just going to be Denver minus the points, almost regardless if Karl-Anthony Towns plays, but it becomes more of a favorite, all caps favorite, if Karl-Anthony Towns is ruled out, and we could still get that number. If this line moves to 7 or something like that with Cato, which that's a big jump, then maybe we second guess it. But if it stays within, I would almost say within 4 or 5, yeah, it's got a good chance of being a final play. All right, Golden State taking on Brooklyn. This just to me screams Golden State spot, not just because of the line, but Brooklyn, who were 10.5-point dogs yesterday, beat Sacramento. And if you go back and watch that Sacramento, I'm still so confused as to, and we'll talk about them in a second, still so confused as to what this Sacramento team is, honestly. But Golden State, should be able to roll here. No Dennis Schroeder for Brooklyn in this spot. That's kind of the biggest injury, but obviously you have Bogdanović still out. Nick Claxton is, I believe, questionable, but I think he's going to play. No Ben Simmons for Brooklyn. Dorian Finney-Smith out, so it's like, yeah, this is a Golden State team that should roll, especially after a Brooklyn win yesterday. So they're in a back-to-back situation. They're on the West Coast. They get a win yesterday somehow, right? And now Golden State's here to be like, yeah, well, let's just do what we're supposed to do. So give me Golden State here. 12.5 is a big number, but I see it happening today. From a total perspective, I think a Golden State team total over could be a look here, but overall, I don't necessarily know how or where Brooklyn's going to score, so maybe even a Brooklyn team total under could be a look. So I think that this is one of those where I don't want to touch the actual total of the game because, and I do this action a lot, right? Golden State, I think, could have a good game. Brooklyn, I don't see having a great game. These are two ships crossing in the night. They don't align to an over or an under for the actual total of 223.5. I'd probably focus on either Golden State team total over or on the other side here, a Brooklyn team total under, that type of a thing. Player prop perspective, you do have blowout potential here, I would say. So nothing major jumping out to me player prop wise. And again, I know we haven't hit too many player props that I love today. One, not exactly loving the player prop board. I like a lot more sides, right? Two, we might keep digging. And then three, it is a large slate, so we don't need to force something that we're not, loving in terms of plays or just trying to find a player prop to find a player prop. All right, OKC in Sacramento here. We just talked about Sacramento briefly. They lose to Brooklyn yesterday. OKC's coming off of a 10-point win, but not covering against Portland. Obviously, this OKC team struggles without Holmgren, right? Caruso's also out. You have one of the Williams out still. And then on the Sacramento side of things, Malik Monk's still out as well, and that's kind of the only thing that I would say totally impacting them. I'm going to sound the psycho alert alarm here. I think a lot of people would look at this game and be like, Sacramento's in disarray. OKC's got Shea, and they should be good. And part of that is true. They should be good. But why is this number based on how kind of wonky Sacramento's been this season? And by the way, when you think about wonky, they literally are 8-9 in the 12th spot in the playoffs right now. They are not looking all that great, right? Whereas the Thunder are 12-4. And they are in the number 2 spot in the playoffs. So why is this number, after all of that, even with Sacramento on back-to-back, only 4.5? That's what I ask myself, and that leads me to thinking, okay, well then they should be able to stay in this game. Last time these two teams played, it was an OKC win, but it was a close game. The time before that, somewhat as well. They haven't played this year, so I don't want to put too much stock into that. But overall, you should see an OKC team that tries to shoot from 3, and Sacramento can't stop a 3 to save their lives, right? Then you have Sacramento, who likes to shoot kind of in the paint and whatnot. OKC, the best team so far this year at stopping points in the paint. Why are we seeing a 4.5-point spread then? Why is this not 6.5, 7.5? And I do think that it's because OKC is somewhat struggling, right? No Chet Holmgren obviously is impacting them a lot. And Sacramento is in, to me, I'm just line reading this one being there's something off about that line, okay? So when I go, I'm smelling the trap and I like to take the trap sometimes, I'm almost thinking the opposite. Initially, I think a lot of people are going to be like, OKC minus the points, duh, right? All those reasons that I mentioned, back-to-back, how they've been playing. But to me, that line should be way higher if OKC was supposed to win this game. So, yeah. Sound it again. Sacramento plus the points. Total sitting at 223. This is such a tough one because we really don't know what we're getting out of Sacramento. I'll lean towards the under because, again, even what I said about I think that they win this game or at least cover this game, right? All those things still apply in the fact of they like to shoot in the paint, but OKC should make it difficult. So this might be a grinded out game, and the reason we like that 4.5 is because we have a low scoring game in which OKC's not pulling away, right? So maybe it's just my dumb brain, but that's kind of how we're thinking about it here in this one. And then one player prop that I'm liking as of right now is going to be Lou Dort over 2.5 threes. He's hit it in 3 straight games against Sacramento. Now, I really only like it because it is plus 105 right now. He has only hit it in 7 of his 16 games so far on the year. On the road, only once. So there are some factors as to why I shouldn't be liking it, I guess. But he's shooting 40% from 3. As of late, he's shooting 7, 9, 8, 6 attempts. He should get a few attempts up there. And again, we're looking at plus money, plus 105. If this is even minus 110, it wouldn't, entice me as much. But guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment 28 down below because you made it to the very end of the video. And I say it all the time. I appreciate the heck out of you guys when you do that. I don't take that for granted whatsoever. Listening to this dummy for 28 minutes, you got to be kidding me. But appreciate you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.